Hello and welcome back to the 100th episode of the Lore Raider. For my 100th video ever, I decided I want to do something that's both fun, but still lore related. Turns out, I'm a fan of the channel The Loading Crew, in particular their D&D alignment series, where they look at a certain character and place their alignment. Now, alignment, for those who don't know, is a way of denoting someone's moral placement from good to evil on one axis and lawful to chaotic on another axis, with neutral in the middle for both. Interestingly, my friend Zerato made a video last year where he expressed he believed Dark Samus was a sort of anti-hero, or rather, not a true villain. So let's test that theory out and see where Dark Samus's alignment ends up. Dark Samus being the primary villain of the Prime games, starting life as the titular Metroid Prime before evolving to the dark counterpart of our hero Samus Aran. When we encounter her in Prime 1, the Metroid Prime is simply an animal trying to survive, and more specifically, defend itself against Samus. With no villainous plans or ulterior motives, we will start the Metroid Prime as true neutral and see where she goes from there. The Metroid Prime wakes up to find Samus Aran inside of its lair, and the two begin to fight. As said in the intro, the Metroid Prime is just an animal here acting in self-preservation of itself. But in this Nat 20 fight, it is eventually forced to shed its armor to reveal its true, squishier, true form, before eventually being defeated and, in a last-ditch effort, snatches the Phazon suit and rips it off of Samus. With the suit in hand, bits of Samus's DNA and the suit acting as a new body to reconstruct herself, the Metroid Prime was no more, and Dark Samus was born. Once again, true neutral. Dark Samus would escape Talon 4 where she was trapped and make her way to planet Aether, another world rich in the valuable Phazon, and by her very instinct she was driven to consume more of the substance. This results in Dark Samus raiding the local space pirate bases for the material and only killing those who specifically get in her way. Because she's only doing this as to not starve, a basic biological function, and isn't for nor against any of these factions on Aether, in this case I'll consider this chaotic neutral. Now, I would accept true neutral, but because Phazon is still plentiful and everywhere, and she's choosing to specifically go to pirate bases and, kill people as a result, I think I'll consider this chaotic neutral. But again, if you wanted to say true neutral, I wouldn't argue with you too hard. When Samus Aran arrives on Aether for unrelated reasons, she sees Dark Samus in the Marine base before following through a portal to an alternate dimension called Dark Aether. Once inside, Dark Samus shoots the light crystal that had been protecting Samus from the deadly environment around her so it would damage her. This is interesting because despite having ample motivation to take revenge on Samus for, effectively murdering her Metroid Prime self and her children, Dark Samus doesn't finish Samus off, instead electing to leave. It is also important that Dark Samus and the Ing, these insectoid-like creatures, were not allies at all, as the latter only attacked Samus as she was the more vulnerable target. It is possible Dark Samus simply hoped the Ing would finish Samus off, but I personally believe she didn't really care if Samus died some sort of death as much as she cared about stopping Samus from following her. I'm gonna go for true neutral, as ultimately she shows no interest in the game for any of the conflicts on Aether and only wants to pursue more Phazon to consume, and despite having every opportunity to pick a fight or kill the vulnerable Samus or the weaker Ing, she doesn't. Dark Samus heads to the Aegon Wastes pirate base to devour more Phazon, where she more or less keeps to herself until Samus Aran arrives and points her arm cannon at her. Now, Dark Samus fights back, which ultimately leads to her first battle and first defeat at the hands of Samus, in which her body begins to destabilize and ultimately explode into a cloud of Phazon particles, which escape. The thing to note here is that Dark Samus didn't initiate the fight. In fact, she would have been quite happy to be left well and truly alone. It is Samus that instigates it by pointing her arm cannon at it. This technically makes this a case of self-defense, which in alignment is always true neutral, as well as when she later in the game destroys the Sanctuary Fortress Bridge in an attempt to, again, stop Samus from following her. Dark Samus is truly passive, true neutral. Later on in the fortress, Dark Samus is confronted by several Ing-controlled Dark Pirate troopers who fire upon her. Dark Samus disposes of them and begins absorbing the Phazon in the room. It is interesting to note just how little Dark Samus does to instigate any of these fights, and notably always allows her opponents to act first. Now, the Ing are a race that categorically attack anything that's not an Ing, and given they shot first, this is true neutral self-defense again. If you want to argue chaotic neutral because she's trying to steal their Phazon, I wouldn't totally argue with you, but Dark Samus has already displayed a willingness to spare Ing who don't get in her way, and they did instigate this fight, so to me, falls closer to true neutral. Samus confronts Dark Samus from behind, again this time on a giant elevator, but she refuses to shoot her doppelganger in the back. Dark Samus fires first, and unlike their previous encounters, Dark Samus seems far more eager to fight, letting off a sinister laugh in the process. Upon being defeated after the fight, she shoots a window out and allows herself to fall to escape her opponent. Chaotic neutral for her willingness to fight and technically instigating it. After Samus killed the Emperor Ing, the being holding Dark Aether together, Dark Samus blocks Samus' attempt to escape. Now she shows her opponent respect by not shooting Samus in the back when she could have and waited for her to turn around properly before the two silently but mutually agree to have an honorable last battle to the death. Lawful good for that actually, for the honor. When defeated, Dark Samus crawls towards Samus and gazes upon the light suit one last time before apparently dying, seemingly accepting defeat in a Nat 20 ending scene. Lawful neutral. We leave Prime 2 behind and start Metroid Prime 3 now. Dark Samus' spores are picked up by the battleship Colossus, and once again she regenerates. Dark Samus siphons the Phazon from the ship and murders 1/3 of the space pirate crew and enslaves the rest to her will, in doing so creating a religious cult with her at the center of worship. She would teach the pirates how to improve the battleship with the use of Phazon before leaving them to find the source of all Phazon, that being the planet known as Phase itself. Phase is a sapient planet, and Dark Samus realized that controlling it meant controlling all of Phazon and a chance to control the universe. Meeting a living computer called an Aurora unit, she led the space pirates in sacking the GFS Valhalla and stealing the unit, but also executed the crew by jettisoning them out into space without mercy. Connecting the unit to Phase, Dark Samus now had complete control of the planet, and several dings here. Neutral evil for forcing the pirates to worship her, lawful evil for looking for Phase to rule the universe with. Killing the Federation crew was both heartless but practical as to conceal her plane from the wider galaxy, so I'll split the difference and go neutral evil, and neutral evil again for forcing both the Aurora unit and Phase to bend to her will. Dark Samus rewards her followers by sending the first Leviathan seed, a living meteor that contains Phazon, to the pirate homeworld, using the Phazon on the living meteor to corrupt its inhabitants and force them into her cult. Lawful evil. Dark Samus would then begin her war, sending a virus to corrupt local Aurora units to cut off access. She then crashed Leviathans on Elysia, Brio, and Norian. Pirate scans indicate she intended to hit Skytown directly, Elysia's only settlement, which would have genocided the entire Elysian race. Chaotic evil for the attempted genocide, and lawful evil for Brio and Norian. Dark Samus personally oversees the invasion of Norian and uses her pirates to attack the Federation soldiers that are garrisoned planet-side. When Samus Aran and 3 other hunters, Gore, Rundus, and Gandreda, made it to the control room of the orbital cannon that would be used to destroy her Leviathan seed, Dark Samus intervened to stop them, but opted not to kill them, likely believing that the encroaching Leviathan's impact would finish them off. This is tricky, but given this is a wartime act, I'm going to go for lawful evil here. A week after the invasion, Dark Samus uses the Phazon coursing through the veins of Gore, Gandreda, and Rundus to corrupt them and take over their minds, forcing them to become commanders in her pirate army. Now, I have a theory as to why Dark Samus permits the hunters to live, which I'll address at the end of the video, so stay tuned for that. For now, I'm going to actually go chaotic evil. Dark Samus stayed on phase after the failure on Norian, and through the game, as Samus is forced to fight her now corrupted fellow hunters, a wraith of Dark Samus would come and murder the defeated hunters and absorb their power in front of Samus in a particularly merciless act, even for Dark Samus. The deaths of the 3 hunters means 3 dings for chaotic evil. Dark Samus is finally confronted in her sanctum on the planet Phase by a heavily corrupted Samus Aran, and the two engage in their final battle over both of their visions for the galaxy. As the battle rages on, Dark Samus grows desperate late into the fight and fuses with the Aurora unit that she had kidnapped, but is ultimately defeated in that form as well. Rejected by the unit and the destruction of the planet now inevitable, Dark Samus overloads and dies in agony before exploding into Phazon dust, defeated for good, unless Metroid Prime 4 decides to continue her story in that game. Nat 20 death scene and Lawful Evil, retired character. I'll be honest, I'm no alignment expert, and if you have your own interpretations, please let me know in the comments down below. Now, to explain my theory mentioned earlier, I believe Dark Samus kept the hunters alive to both increase Samus's level of power, as being enraged makes Samus stronger, and well, seeing her friends die certainly wouldn't rage her, but also to further motivate Samus into reaching her with the goal of personally driving Samus's corruption over the edge and turning her into a second Dark Samus, which is actually an ending that could happen in the game. In short, she never cares about the hunters as commanders, simply as pawns to be used and disposed of, hence the chaotic evil ruling. As stated at the top of the video, my friend Zeratome believed Dark Samus fit the role of an anti-hero, or at least not a total villain, and these sort of anti-hero characters sit in a chaotic good alignment. However, as we see with Dark Samus, she didn't fit that mold. Indeed, Dark Samus was the exact mirror of Samus herself. Where they're both alike is that passively, as we see with Dark Samus in Prime 2, they sort of keep to themselves. Dark Samus doesn't really look for fights. She only swats aside those who get in her way, but she does show respect and eagerness to battle those who were her equals. However, in Prime 3, upon finding Phase, Dark Samus is given the power to hold the fate of the universe in her hands. And while Samus, the chosen of the Chozo, is selfless, working a largely thankless job in which most people think she's actually a male, Dark Samus goes the other route, displaying her true colors to be a selfish narcissist, forcing an entire species to worship her like a goddess and becoming actively cruel and ruthless. In a sense, Metroid Prime 3 corruption is as much about the Phazon corrupting Samus as power corrupting Dark Samus.